Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for May 4th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last 7 days, we've had quite a bit of precipitation over the southern half of the Great Basin, mainly across Nevada and Utah, and especially over the southern half of Nevada and Utah, where this precipitation has been well above normal for the last 7 days. The water vapor satellite loop from this morning shows a strong ridge of high pressure still remaining over the eastern half of the Great Basin, and this will keep warm temperatures, light winds, and dry conditions. However, a deeper trough of low pressure off the west coast will slowly move eastward over the next several days, and this will bring an increase in winds along with showers and thunderstorms from west to east across the area and cooler temperatures. And for today, with that trough of low pressure moving eastward, approaching the Great Basin and the winds increasing, we'll see good dispersion in most areas. Looking at the individual components of the ventilation index, transport winds on the left shows this increase in winds, with the strongest winds over the southern half of Nevada into southwest Utah and the Arizona Strip. Also, mixing heights will be high across the region. On Thursday, this trough of low pressure starts to move into California, and this will continue with stronger winds moving eastward across the Great Basin, along with increasing precipitation over the western half of Idaho into western Nevada. Again, with these stronger winds, we will still see good dispersion across the Great Basin. Again, on Thursday, you can see these stronger winds move further east over the southern half of Nevada and Utah and continue increasing across Idaho, again with higher mixing heights. As we move into Friday, this low starts to move over the southern half of the Great Basin, spreading precipitation to most areas, and again keeping good dispersion with those stronger winds, especially over Utah and the southern half of Nevada. However, winds start to decrease somewhat with decreasing mixing heights over parts of Idaho, the Sierra, into northwest Nevada, which will likely see somewhat poorer dispersion. Again, looking at the individual components, the strongest winds on Friday are across the eastern half of the Great Basin, along with those higher mixing heights, especially over southern and eastern Utah. Again, those mixing heights start decreasing across Idaho and northern Nevada. If we look at the forecast for the Utah Clearing Index, you can see again these higher values for clearing index indicating those higher winds and better dispersion across the entire state. Looking at the overall forecast amount of precipitation from today through early Saturday morning, and you can see again precipitation will move across all areas of the Great Basin, with the heavier amounts of precipitation focused over the northern half of the Great Basin. But again, even southern Nevada and southern Utah, which has been seeing precipitation recently, will at least see light amounts of precipitation and up to around a quarter or even a half inch of total precipitation in some areas. Now looking at the longer range from Saturday through the early portion of next week, we can see on Saturday this low is generally located over the central portion of the Great Basin, and this will keep cooler temperatures, widespread precipitation affecting the Great Basin through the weekend. Also, winds will be decreasing, so we will see ventilation indices start to decrease over much of the Great Basin as we move through the weekend. This will continue on Sunday. This area of low pressure moves further east into the Four Corners area, so we might start to see some drying conditions eventually start moving into California and the northwest, but still wet conditions and cooler temperatures across the Great Basin with fairly good ventilation indices, but again, some areas will decrease as those winds decrease near that area of low pressure. On Monday, a ridge of high pressure starts to build into the west and into the western side of the Great Basin, bringing warming temperatures, lighter winds, and drier conditions. Again, under that ridge of high pressure, we'll see poor dispersion into California and the western half of Nevada, along with some portions of Wyoming and Utah. As this ridge of high pressure moves eastward into Tuesday, again we'll see those drier conditions spread across the Great Basin, with mainly wet weather only lingering over the eastern side of Utah, southeast Idaho into Wyoming, with drier conditions further west. However, we will start to watch any weak areas of low pressure that may bring a return of some thunderstorms to parts of the Sierra as we move into the middle of next week, but that's still a ways off. Under that ridge of high pressure, again, you'll see more poor dispersion over the western side of the Great Basin and still somewhat decent dispersion on the eastern side as winds are a little bit stronger. Looking at the overall forecast amount of precipitation from Saturday through early Monday, and again you can see wet weather continuing across the Great Basin, with now some of the heavier amounts of precipitation starting to move further south, so much of Utah, Nevada, southeast Idaho, and Wyoming will see precipitation amounts over a half or even an inch of total precipitation. Again, still the drier areas being the Arizona Strip and southern Nevada, but these areas will still receive moisture, which is still good amounts for this region of the Great Basin. As we look at the extended outlook into the middle of the month of May, we'll likely continue to see these warmer temperatures and generally wetter conditions over the northern and eastern side of the Great Basin, with eventually some drier weather moving into the west coast. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.